The Wizard of Oz is one of the most iconic films in cinematic history. But behind the beautiful, dreamlike Emerald City was a nightmare film production filled with injuries, disasters, and near-death experiences.
I almost died.
From actors being burned alive, toxic makeup poisoning, budgeting disasters, and many directors being fired, the set of The Wizard of Oz was anything but magical.
God damn.
This is the story of the cursed production of The Wizard of Oz. Hi, my name is Tasha, and this is my series White Rabbit, where we deep dive into anything spooky, odd, or just interesting while I apply some special effects makeup. Today's story is a little bit different than the type of stories we normally do. I just saw that I was on a true crime spree, basically, and I wanted to break it up and do something else because this isn't only a true crime channel, it's just interesting stories. I don't know, because after learning about some of the things that went on set of The Wizard of Oz, I feel like it was pretty criminal, especially when it comes to Judy Garland, who played Dorothy. But we'll get into that later. Today's makeup is inspired by the Wicked Witch, mostly because any other character intimidated me. I wouldn't even know where to begin with the other characters, but I definitely needed some work on body paint, so I was happy to do Elphaba. If you like this type of content, please hit that subscribe button and help me get to my goal of 1,000 subscribers. If not, rude.
What is wrong with you?
But I'll forgive you if you at least watch the rest of this video and draw me a hand-drawn picture of my cat, Luna, then I'll forgive you. Let's start at the very beginning. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was a children's book written by L. Frank Boehm, and it was published in 1900. L. Frank had what seems like every job on earth before he became an author. Just listen to all the jobs he had. He was an oil tycoon, a shop owner, a newspaper publisher, an actor, a reporter, a playwright, salesman. This man was a chicken breeder. He was also a department store window dresser. Basically, if you had a job, L. Frank would do that job. Work, 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 work. He did not play when it came to making money. He found his calling in 1897 when he published a book called Tales from Mother Goose, and then in 1900 he released The Wizard of Oz. In case there's anyone watching who hasn't seen The Wizard of Oz, hasn't read the book, or if it's just been a long time and you've kind of forgotten, I'm gonna give a really quick rundown. The main character, Dorothy, is a young girl that lives on a farm in Kansas with her family and her dog Toto. One day this cyclone rips through Kansas and picks up Dorothy's entire house with her and her dog Toto inside.
A tornado quake!
This cyclone carries them all the way to the land of Oz and drops them on top of the Wicked Witch of the East, instantly killing her. The Good Witch of the North, Glenda, as a thank you to Dorothy for accidentally killing the Wicked Witch of the East, blessed her with these ruby slippers that were like right off of the dead witch's feet, which, ew.
That's nasty.
Then she sends her to the Wizard of Oz in the Emerald City to see if he could help her get home. The entire time, the Wicked Witch of the West is on Dorothy's ass for killing her sister and stealing her shoes. That sounds fair. On her way to Emerald City, Dorothy meets a scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion that join her on her journey because they also want some things from the wizard. When they finally make it to Emerald City and speak to the wizard, he basically tells them, I will give you everything you guys want if you kill the Wicked Witch of the West and you bring me her broom as proof. I actually think he just wanted the broom and they were like, we're gonna have to kill her.
Bitch, please die!
Long story short, they kill the witch, take their broom back to the Wizard of Oz, and they find out that he was just a fraud. He was some random guy that got lost in a hot air balloon and landed in Oz, and he couldn't help anybody. The wizard offered to take Dorothy back in his balloon, but then he accidentally left her and Glenda showed up and told Dorothy she had the power to go home the whole time. All she had to do was click those ruby slippers together. Why did you not tell me that before? We would have problems.
I want to hit you.
Anyway, that is the shortened version of the movie. The book does have some differences, but the plot is the same. So, The public loves this book. It was a bestseller for like 2 years. It did so well that they ended up turning it into a Broadway show. And then the Broadway show did so well that they toured around the States for like 8 years, selling sold out shows. Elle Frank also turned it into a live motion picture, and that also did very well. The issue wasn't people liking the book. The only issue was that the book was so fantastical that even though they were selling out shows, it was so expensive to put on the shows that he wasn't making any money. And one thing I didn't know is that The Wizard of Oz did so well that it actually got turned into like a 14-book series. Elle Frank tried to turn several of the books into movies, but every single one of them failed for some reason or another. One production company even went bankrupt trying to turn these books into movies. The Oz collection basically became labeled as unfilmable. In 1938, MGM Studios wanted to give it another try, so they purchased the rights for around the equivalent of $1 million, and then they had a $2.3 million budget for the movie. They were looking at around $4 million total just to get this thing running. And there was a lot of pressure because they knew that these books were called unfilmable because no matter what, they never made money. Companies went bankrupt. Things always happened. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the main cast. Jack Haley was playing the Tin Man. Ray Bolger was the Scarecrow. Bert Lauer, I think his name is, was the Cowardly Lion. Margaret Hamilton was the Wicked Witch, and Dorothy was played by Judy Garland. The first issue MGM ran into was keeping a director. They went through 4 directors. One director got fired for the film being too dark and they didn't like the vibe of it. 2 directors left to go work on Gone with the Wind. One director only worked on the sepia, I don't know how you pronounce it, those shots. He didn't work on any of the colored shots, so maybe he wasn't used to working with color. Technicolor only came out like a few years prior, I believe. It wasn't common. So no one director can be credited with the film The Wizard of Oz. It was like a mashup of different ideas. And if you thought the directors were chaotic, you don't even want to know about the script. Apparently several scripts were submitted to the directors and they had a hard time picking one. So there were 15 different script rewrites and every single one of them was different. Some of them had cut scenes, some of them had characters completely written off, and every single one of them had alternate endings. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why so many times books are better than the movie, because how much creative freedom do you need when it's based off a book? How could you completely write out characters? 15 completely different endings for a book that already has a clear ending? I don't know. And as an actor, y'all better decide on a script and stop giving me all these damn rewrites. I don't know how they were managing to remember all of these changes. 15 different scripts. I would be pissed.
I quit. I'm quitting the show.
So finally, when all of that is taken care of and they feel like everything is aligned to start shooting, there was another issue. Gail Sondergaard was originally cast to play the Wicked Witch of the West. Originally, the Wicked Witch of the West was written in as this beautiful, like seductress kind of witch. And Gail really liked that because she was the it girl of her time and she was always cast as a beautiful woman. So she loved that. But then came the script rewrites and she was rewritten as this haggard, old, ugly woman. So Gail said, bitch please, I don't play ugly even for a check, and she quit 2 days before filming started. I feel like as an actress you should be able to play a variety of roles. I guess she wanted to be typecast, but are you really an actress if the only thing you can do is play the beautiful woman? One of my favorite stories in Hollywood is about Halle Berry and her audition for Losing Isaiah. I'm going off on a short tangent here, but if you have not seen Losing Isaiah, do it. Amazing movie. But anyway, the main character is a drug addict mother and she puts her baby in the trash. Jessica Lange ends up adopting the baby, but then the mother gets clean and is like fighting for the baby. So Halle Berry really wanted this role because at this point she was being typecast as the beautiful woman all of the time. She wanted to prove she could act. She was like, put me in, coach. But nobody was really doing that. So anyway, they turned her down. They told her she was too pretty, like, don't even bother coming in for an audition. We want someone that's believable. So Hallie just shows up anyway in character to the audition that they told her not to come to, and she was just acting like a crackhead. She acted like a crackhead so much that she got the part, and it's a great movie, one of my favorites. It's so good, watch it. Anyway, I said that to say that it's kind of weird to me that she turned down the role just because it wasn't the role that she always played in every other movie. But she was in her rights to do so, and so she did. This, of course, left them scrambling to find a new Wicked Witch just 2 days before shooting, but they ended up casting Margaret Hamilton as the new Wicked Witch. And I, for one, don't think the Wicked Witch would have hit the same if anybody else played that role. I'm like a die-hard fan of the original Wizard of Oz. That was my childhood crack, okay? Crack. Margaret played the hell out of that role. So filming finally starts, and almost immediately after filming starts, there is another issue. Aside from the first director getting fired, of course, there was an issue with the Tin Man's makeup. Actor Buddy Ebsen was originally cast as the Tin Man, and if you have ever had the pleasure of seeing the Beverly Hillbillies, he plays Jed Clampett, the father. But early in filming, he was actually rushed to the hospital because of aluminum dust that was in his silver makeup. If you've ever used face powder to like bake your face, you know what happens. There's like a cloud, a poof of product everywhere. And I see so many people that like talk and powder and breathe all that. Try not to breathe that in. Anyway, these aluminum particles that were in this powder on his makeup got into his lungs, and he went into lung failure. He was having body spasms and he could not breathe. He remained in the hospital for 6 weeks, and MGM ended up replacing him. They replaced him with Jack Haley, but they didn't make the makeup safer. They just turned it from a powder into a paste. So instead of breathing in the aluminum, it was just seeping into his skin. He had to deal with eye infections from the makeup, and the makeup horrors do not stop there. There's a scene in Munchkinland where the Wicked Witch vanishes into a puff of smoke. What was supposed to happen was there would be a puff of smoke, and then Margaret would fall through this trap door, and then there would be this explosion of fire. When it all cleared up, the witch would be gone. Margaret ended up suffering from third-degree burns when her makeup, which included copper, caught fire during this scene. Her makeup that is all over her body, her green makeup, it caught fire. The explosion that was supposed to happen once she was through the trapdoor happened when she was only about halfway down. So the top half of her just ignited, the half with the makeup. It ignited into a fireball that covered her face and her hands. She was rushed to the hospital, and she was hospitalized for about 6 weeks before she had to return to set because the studio kept pressuring her to come back. She did come back, but she refused to do any scenes with explosions or fire. She really didn't want to do any stunts after that, but especially any stunts with fire or smoke was an absolute no. They had to get a stunt double for her. There was one scene where the stunt double was in the air on her broom and smoke was billowing from out of the broom. Well, the smoke machine exploded, causing this massive gash on her leg, and also she got lit on fire and suffered from burns. And I know Margaret was just looking at them like, you know, the look your parents give you when they like, I told you. Yeah.
Told you.
Now, aside from the makeup, just the conditions of filming were horrible. Because of the Technicolor scenes, the studio had these massive, bright, hot lights shining down onto the set and the cast. And because of how much power they were using, they were causing brownouts in the local communities. And I didn't know what brownouts were, but brownouts are, now a blackout is when you completely lose power. A brownout is when you have like very, very light, soft power. Like you can't run any appliances, all of the lights are dim, nothing has full power. So that's a brownout. And the studio was causing everyone to have brownouts. And because of of these lights, the temperatures in the studio were sweltering. It was like over 100 degrees inside the studio. This was horrible for the cast, especially the Cowardly Lion, because his suit was made from an actual lion pelt and it weighed over 100 pounds. And to that I say, go straight to jail. What the hell do you mean it was made out of real lion? Ew. Anyway, the costume was so heavy and the lights were so hot that they had to keep taking it off of him and blow drying the inside because he was just pouring sweat in there. I guess everyone acted like he didn't stink because an actual lion pelt in 100-degree weather being blow dried with human sweat crusting all over it from blow drying it every 2 hours, filming for hours and hours every day. Absolutely not. And air conditioning wasn't really a thing, so all they could do is open the doors in between filming. Okay, on to the flying monkeys. Some very notable and memorable characters from the movie are the witches' flying monkeys. The actors playing the flying monkeys were suspended by piano wire, but apparently the rigging was really bad and a lot of them fell. On multiple occasions, the wires snapped, sending actors plummeting to the ground. They suffered broken bones, sprains, severe bruising, and apparently MGM forced them to keep working even if they were injured. And it's not that hard to believe because Margaret, who played the Wicked Witch, said that they were pressuring her to come back after being burned when she was hospitalized for 6 weeks. If it isn't obvious already that MGM showed very little care for their actors, it becomes painfully obvious when you think about Judy Garland. At just 16 years old, Judy Garland was forced to work long hours without breaks. MGM Studios put her on a diet of cigarettes, pills, and coffee to keep her slim and energetic. She got a stimulant in the morning with her daily pack of cigarettes to keep her awake through these long work hours. She was only allowed soup and coffee throughout the day, and then at night she took another pill for sleep. This was the diet of a 16-year-old girl for at least the 6 months while they were filming. But it is speculated that she had this diet when she started working with MGM, which was at about 14 years old. The character Dorothy in the book is a child, and another very famous child, Shirley Temple, was actually up for the role. But since they gave the role to Judy, they wanted to keep her as small and petite and tiny as possible. She had spent her career prior to this movie being typecast as the plain, basic girl. Working on the set of The Wizard of Oz was like the final straw. It ended up really kicking off her lifelong struggle with substances and with food. She even admitted to one of her co-stars that she felt like she needed a pill to get up and she needed a pill to go to sleep, because she was asking her, how do you keep so much energy throughout all of these filming days when we're filming for like 14 hours every day? And when she was asked why she didn't just refuse the pills, she basically said that now she felt like she needed them and she doesn't think that she would be able to do the job without them. They created a 16-year-old addict. And Judy's mother was completely fine with this. She had no problem with the studio pumping her 16-year-old daughter full of cigarettes and full of pills. Many people said that Judy Garland's mother used her as a cash cow. One of the most known terrible things that happened on set was the snow in the poppy field scene. There's this scene where the Wicked Witch curses these poppy fields that the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and Dorothy are running through to get to Emerald City. They end up becoming overcome with sleep. Glenda, the Good Witch, makes it snow to wake them up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the snow was asbestos. Cancer-causing, lung-destroying asbestos. And the worst part is that 5 months before filming, we discovered that asbestos causes cancer and destroys your lungs. We as a country were just trying to figure out what we were gonna do because so many people had this in their homes, just in buildings in general. It was used in installation, in flooring, in drywall. MGM maybe unknowingly ground it up and sprinkled it over their actors. The Wizard of Oz at the time was MGM's most expensive production. They spent the equivalent of $60 million on this movie. In a world of black and white, it was shot mostly in Technicolor, and in my personal opinion, the transition from the black and white or sepia into color, I mean, chef's kiss. I love that. This film was very popular in the box office. It was mostly popular with children, and because child tickets are far less expensive than adult tickets, once again, they did not make money. The Wizard of Oz did not show any profit until it was re-released in 1949, and that is your sign to repost your content. In spite of all of the suffering, The Wizard of Oz became a legendary film, and it's one of my all-time favorites. If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe before you leave, and I will see you down another rabbit hole.